Let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking an absolutely incredible underdog story based on Dr. Kevin Frederick's lecture on the Waldensians. We're talking about a real-life David and Goliath situation here, a small community of peaceful farmers going up against the sheer, overwhelming might of a brutal 17th century empire. Now, while this story definitely has its share of massive historical shifts and clashing armies, the whole thing really hinges on one man's agonizing, almost impossible choice, a choice between the lives of his family and his faith. As we dive into the extraordinary life of Joshua Janavel in this explainer, I want you to keep this one question in the back of your mind. Section 1, A Century of Devastation. Before we meet our hero, we really need to understand just how incredibly vulnerable the Waldensian people were at this exact moment in history. The 17th century was, well, it was literally devastating for them. Look at this timeline. In 1629, a terrible drought and famine hit northern Italy. And just as they're starting to get back on their feet the very next spring, occupying French troops bring the Black Plague. This wiped out almost 50% of their population, half of them gone. It also took 14 out of their 16 pastors. So you have a community that is just reeling. Fast forward to January 1655. Driven by religious animosity, the Duke of Savoy and the French king order an edict of expulsion. Right in the dead of winter, Waldensians who refused to convert to Catholicism were forced out of their secure valleys and into the deep snows, where so many just froze to death. Section 2. The Easter Massacre. So, this brings us to the inciting incident of our story. The Duke of Savoy had actually garrisoned troops right inside Waldensian homes. Then, mid-April of 1655, a massive force of 15,000 Savoyard troops rolls into the valleys. On Easter Sunday, before the sun even came up, they launched a well-organized, absolutely horrific betrayal. The assault was unbelievably brutal. We're talking the torture of men, women, and children. The source material details how troops bound victims' arms and legs and literally rolled them off cliffs. The cruelty was so extreme, so beyond the pale, that many French officers assigned to command these troops actually resigned their commissions right there in protest. Section 3. The Lion of Rora. Amid all this total chaos, one man decides to make a stand. A farmer named Joshua Janavel had actually seen this attack coming. He tried to warn his people, but they kind of scoffed at him, thinking he was just being overly provocative. Well, he prepared anyway. Only one tiny hamlet remained intact, a place called Rora, with maybe 50 dwellings. Defending it, Janavel and just 11 volunteer farmers. That's it. 12 guys standing against the Marquis de Pineza's 15,000 well-equipped Savoyard soldiers. Talk about a staggering mismatch. Over 4 days, the Marquis sent wave after wave of troops to just crush this tiny resistance. And incredibly, Janavel and his 11 men repulsed them every single time, literally sending the enemy running in panic. Section 4. An impossible choice. But inevitably, the numbers game always catches up, right? Filled with absolute rage and, honestly, shame at being beaten by a dozen farmers, the Marquis ordered a massive attack, 8,000 men. This time, the small village of Rora was totally overrun. 126 citizens were killed, and many were taken prisoner. And that included Janavel's wife, his daughters, and his 8-year-old son. Janavel himself managed to escape, but the Marquis knew exactly who he had captured. So he sent this intensely personal, haunting ultimatum to Janavel. Renounce your faith, embrace Catholicism, and your family lives. He even threw in an offer for a military commission and compensation. But refuse, and your wife and daughters will be put to death, and a massive bounty goes on your head. Now, looking at the original lecture notes here, you'll see his spoken name is mistakenly translated phonetically as John of El. But historically, of course, we know him as Joshua Janavel. Through those historical records, we have his exact, unyielding response to this horrific threat. Janavel wrote back a letter that is just staggering in its conviction. He writes that he keenly feels all the tender sensations of a husband and a parent, and he'd suffer any torment, even die, to preserve them. But then he says, the purchase of their lives must not be the price for my salvation. He heartbreakingly accepts that the Marquis has power over their physical bodies, but he reminds him that their immortal souls, those are out of his reach. It's a completely unshakable stance that, tragically but predictably, led to the immediate execution of his wife and daughters by the Marquis. Section 5. The resistance grows. Out of this profound, unimaginable tragedy, something miraculous happens. Fleeing to the Alps with his 8-year-old son and a growing band of fugitive Protestants, Janavel pivots to a fierce guerrilla war. Just look at the numbers from the Battle of San Secondo. The Waldensians were fighting out in the open against a heavily fortified Catholic troop position. To defend themselves from musket fire, these farmers literally carried thick wooden planks over their heads as shields. And the result? Absolute devastation for the fortified opposition. The Protestants lost just 17 men, while the heavily armed opposing troops lost 450 men, with over 500 more wounded. Word of the Easter Massacre and of this incredible, defiant resistance spread like wildfire across Europe. The news even reached Oliver Cromwell in England, who actually encouraged parishes to raise money to support the Waldensians. And this resulted in 500 mercenary Protestants from all over Europe traveling down to the valleys to rally to Janavel's cause. They basically formed a small army to face an enemy force that had now swelled to 16,000 strong. Add to all of this Janavel's near superhuman resilience. During the summer skirmishes, he was wounded in the leg, and later he was actually shot straight through the chest. A musket ball passed completely through his lung and exited his back. But amazingly, the wound wasn't mortal. Within 6 weeks, he had miraculously healed and was right back out on the battlefield commanding his troops. The Waldensians' continued success against such impossible odds prompted a local Catholic bishop to look at the returning wounded soldiers and famously remark, "I thought the wolves used to devour the heretics, but now I see the heretics eat the wolves." Section 6. A legacy of faith. Against completely insurmountable odds, the Waldensians survived. But you might be wondering, what became of the Lion of the Valleys? Well, Janavel's story actually has a rather ironic ending. He retired to Geneva in the 1660s. And why? Because he was actually banished by his own people. They once again felt he was being just a bit too provocative toward the Duke of Savoy. But his genius definitely wasn't forgotten. He left behind a military manual detailing his specific guerrilla tactics. And, incredibly, according to our source material, those very guidelines are still studied by the U.S. Army at West Point today. His physical fight ended, but his tactical legacy, it lives on. Which brings us right back to where we started. Dr. Frederick's lecture leaves us with a really powerful reflection. Chances are none of us will ever face the horrific life or death choices that Joshua Janavel had to face. But I'll leave you with this final thought, directly from the source material, to ponder. What would happen to our lives today if we didn't let setbacks dissuade us? How might our lives change if we held on to our deepest convictions with the unshakable strength of Joshua Janavel? Thanks for exploring this with us, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.